So, Dr. Lou, thank you very much for coming in.
Such a pleasure, Corey.
Much appreciated. So, for the listeners at home, I think where a good place to start is in front of me, I have one of the most famous vets in Australia, which is very exciting. And obviously, we've worked together for many years, and you're on board of the Motivate team, all right? So, for the listeners, and I think what we'll probably do is to serve them best is backtrack from the very beginning and talk about your story. So, how did you become one of Australia's most famous vets, as well as a client manager and property investment specialist here?
Wow, good question. Well, I firstly wouldn't say I'm one of Australia's most famous vets. Let's call me a personality, perhaps.
I see you on TV.
Yeah, okay. A couple of seasons of Desert Vet. So that came about as a family show, really. A network, Channel 9, decided that our family had a pretty interesting story between my dad's vet clinics, my brother's oceanarium, and my dad's work as a vet through the Pilbara and so forth. And so we made a couple of seasons, which was great fun. It aired internationally. I still get messages from random people around the world saying, "I'm watching you on TV, Dr. Lou," and I'm always so fascinating to hear where in the world they are.
Love it.
Yeah. So yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, it's cool. And so when did you get into vetting after school?
Yeah.
How did it happen? Obviously,
Yeah.
your dad's a vet. So.
Yeah, dad's a vet. I always knew I wanted to work with animals from the very, very beginning. There was really nothing else I wanted to do,
Right.
in all honesty. So I went straight into vet school after high school and straight into being a vet. I was a fully qualified veterinarian by the time I was 23, turning 24. Yeah.
Cool.
So pretty young age, really, to be have a pretty highly stressful job, to be honest.
Yeah.
So yeah, went straight into working full time as a vet up north in the Pilbara for my dad, then over in London for a couple of years, then came back to Perth, then I went to Sydney. I was kind of just, in my 20s wanting to travel and see as much of the world and Australia as I could. So the vet job was great in that respect.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
And I mean, did you find, obviously, your dad somewhat being kind of at the top of the industry, like, did that make things easier, or was it more of a hindrance because of the expectations? Or what was...
Yeah, my dad and I are very different people, so we never really got along all that well in a personal or a professional sense. So I tried working with him over the years. It never really worked out. I've worked out I'm much better off doing my own thing.
I hear. And look, that's pretty common, like, to be fair.
Yeah.
One of the scary things that I'm approaching with my kids, if they want to get into property, obviously this is going to be a great place to start, but how that's going to go, I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
But no, I totally get it. And so you were kind of bouncing around. Also know that when you're up in the Pilbara, there was a particular dog up there.
Oh, yeah. So my dad's story was that he was Red Dog's vet. So that was kind of the initial in, I suppose, for Dad having the TV show.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Because I remember, obviously, this is back when Red Dog came out, like the actual movie. Because I got a lot of family in Dampier.
Oh,
In
right.
particular. And so obviously there's the statue there and
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a kid, our vet clinic up in Roban was literally attached to your house. So from my very early memories, I was sneaking through the dividing door into the clinic and hanging out with all the animals. And
Yeah. And so that was obviously one of the things that got you into vets.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, sweet. And so when you were a vet, because obviously a lot of people looking from the outside in, at being a vet, being with animals, helping animals, that's a very valid way of serving the planet. You know what I mean? Because you went from there and then you had a bit of a career change. Like, what was the cause of that? Well, what happened?
So basically, after being a full-time vet for about 10 years, I was pretty burnt out. I was burnt out for a few reasons, as is very common in the vet industry. Compassion fatigue is a real thing. I mean, you're constantly caring for animals, and the emotional toll is quite big for a lot of vets. And not only that, but I realised that financially I was really stuck. Vets don't make all that much money. Even though had been a fully qualified vet for 10 years, the most I could really earn at that point was about 80 grand. And I was struggling to get ahead financially, which was really frustrating.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I knew that I'd always been a very hard worker. I always taught my class, in school and uni and everything else. And I was just like, hang on, how am I still struggling when I work hard? I know I can do it. And there's people I know that didn't even finish high school and they're earning 3 times what I earn on the mine. So I was like, I just want to have a go at earning money for a bit.
Yeah.
And that's when I found the property industry and had a complete career change for 4 or 5 years where I really got stuck hard into how to get ahead financially. Thankfully learnt how to get ahead with property investment and got myself a couple of properties, which I could have never done on my vet wage, and realised at the same time how much I love looking after helping people as well.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main things I loved about being a vet, is forming a beautiful relationship with the person who trusts me and I trust them, and looking after their beautiful animal. So I realised that, the relationship that I form with my clients is what's really quite precious to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that role taught me a lot about not only property investment, but just forming relationships. And also we did a lot of training in integrity, and I realised that it was really important to me to have integrity in all areas of my life. And I realised that even though I became a vet because I love animals, my true calling is actually wildlife conservation.
Right.
And if money was not a problem for me, that's what I want to be doing.
Yeah.
I literally want to be saving the endangered species of the world.
Yeah.
So through that journey, I realized, okay, property investment's going to get me to where I want to get to financially, so I can get back to my true calling of wildlife conservation. It was just quite amazing to get to the point where I felt like I was on track to reaching those sorts of goals.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, with what you said, and this is probably, I think, really good point. It sounds like, and I was here too, right? In the Navy, feeling like when you got in, it's like, I'm doing this because I love it. I'm doing this so that, and I know my experience, right? It was like, I'm going to do this so I never feel like I'm working a day in my life, because it's something I'm really passionate and really enjoy. But then you realize, holy shit, how important money is. And then all of a sudden, there's kind of like this paradigm shift of like, holy crap, I'm going down this direction, now knowing that the money is just not there. And then you got to kind of have this, whether it's a career change or a pivot or whatever the case is, but like, what was that experience like for you? How did you go from being a vet, understanding where you're at, but then into property? Like, what was the journey?
It came about by chance, to be honest. I was I was just very frustrated financially. I knew I just wanted to try something different, and I just came across a role that was in the property investment industry, looking after people, it was the perfect fit for me. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And then obviously, because one of the things I notice now, not that money is what sort of makes the decision, but it kind of always comes back to that in a way, right? So it's kind of like, I want to do this, but then hang on a second, I've got to consider A, B, C, and D, right? And then obviously money, for the people who aren't really sort of money aware, it kind of becomes a really limiting factor for you in your life. Yeah. And, one of the things, obviously you've got a dad who's very successful, right? And there's obviously people that you can see who may have chosen your career, or a particular career, and sure, they're succeeding, but we're talking like 1%. Or 1% of 1%, right? When you look at the overall mass market. But then what I see a lot, and this is a lot as well for clients, they kind of feel stuck. You know what I mean? Like, there isn't another option. There is no other option of just jumping into property and being able to explore that, or changing careers and getting to something that's far more lucrative. They're kind of stuck sort of doing what they're doing. And for some of them, it's kind of fair enough, because if that's all you know, if that's all you've been doing since you were 18, 19, 20, whatever it is, it can be pretty bloody hard, especially if you've got mortgages and kids and expenses and, debt and all the rest of it. So that's a pretty, for lack of a better term, that's a pretty ballsy thing to do, right? But when it came to the fatigue, with being a vet, like what's that about? Like how does that come about?
Oh, look, it really comes about from, as a vet, you don't have a lot of work-life balance. A lot of the time you're working really long hours. The money's terrible. People expect a lot of you, and they more or less want you to, work almost for free. I mean, the comments get flown around a lot constantly about how expensive the vet bills are. And it's like, well, no, it's just that the government doesn't subsidise your medical bills. That's why the dog's medical bills cost more. So that it hurts, because you're there to help the animals. You're not doing it for the money. When you're constantly just like, oh gosh, why does this cost so much? Is that because that's how much it costs?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that part of it makes it tricky. But yeah, I don't find that as much now anymore because since I journeyed more into being a holistic vet, I'm able to use quite different sort of skill sets to serve my clients. So I'm able to, serve fewer people, but I'm able to get longer term results, which is what is really rewarding.
Yeah. Now the word holistic, because this is what interests me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Obviously, our healthcare system is pretty bad, and I say that in the grand scheme, the fact that the Australian medical system is one of the better in the world, apparently, but it's still pretty freaking horrible, right? Considering the fact that, even now, I had a meeting with my doctor this morning, got some tests done, and they're still just trying to chase. I'll put that to the side. But the point is, I can tell that it's now just a system to just generate money and get me on certain medication and just on that wheel, right? So when you're talking about holistic, like can you break that down?
Sure. So probably another contributing factor to me getting compassion fatigue or just burnt out in the conventional vet system was that I really never felt that I was healing my patient. So it really felt like I was continually trying to put a name on the disease that the animal had and then finding a drug that matched. That's kind of more or less how vets get trained, is to find a symptom, put a Band-Aid on it, which is a drug. And it just never felt that good for me to, my end result was, oh, great, your dog's now on X drug for the rest of its life. That just never felt like a result for me, which was another reason I just didn't find that the job was all that rewarding after all that. However, after my few years in the property industry, I decided I just really missed working with animals, so I wanted to go back to doing that. But I realized that everything in my life now had to have absolute integrity, and I couldn't go back to doing vet in the same way I did it before. So I realized that if I was going to be a vet, I was going to make sure that I wasn't going to, cut any corners with putting an animal on a drug. I was going to make sure I looked under every way I could to actually heal that animal and get it better long term. So when I came back to the vet industry with different coloured glasses on, I suppose, I did start looking at every patient quite differently, and patients where the only solution was to put them on X drug for the rest of their lives, I just said, no, what else can we do? And I just started searching and hunting. I found an amazing holistic vet, Dr. Claire Middle, who was kind of the first holistic vet in Australia, really, and she wrote an amazing book on how to feed your dog naturally, as in fresh foods, and I was always a huge fan of hers, and I just started emailing her all the time. Okay, what do I do here? What do I do there? And just starting to, open my toolbox to all the different ways that I could help these animals naturally to get better. And then eventually she said, oh, Dr. Lou, that there's actually a course in herbal veterinary medicine. I was like, oh my God, there is. And that just, oh my goodness, I never forget when I first got stuck into that course. Like, I'm obsessed with plants, and I'm like, oh my God, plants and medicine, this is my jam. So from that day forward, vet became so rewarding for me, because I wasn't just putting an animal on a drug. I was actually digging around, finding what is the underlying cause, where's the imbalance in the body, and then how do we help the body come back into balance using herbs. And my patients have honestly never been better. Like I get feedback all the time. Little Fluffy's never been healthier and happier in his entire life. And quite often I'm seeing patients where they're literally on drugs and still unhealthy their entire lives.
Yeah.
So being able to have that absolute turnaround is just the most rewarding thing.
Yeah. And look, this is what we see with humans. And obviously since COVID, I think COVID's obviously pulled the curtain back a fair bit on the industry and how much these massive pharmaceutical companies have influence over our policy, in terms of what the government implements. But we're sicker than ever before. There's more medication being prescribed than ever before. And it's like the direction we're heading. Like if our normal doctors, our normal GPs had your mindset, like I feel like we would be living in a different country. Like
Absolutely.
A totally different country.
Absolutely.
But again, this is a symptom of, the incentive structure being completely backwards. So again, what you've done is very admirable, very noble in the sense that you've kind of gone against the grain. What has there been any pushback in the industry about what you're doing?
Oh, probably.
Okay. Good way to put it. Yeah.
I ignore all of that.
Great.
I have more than enough people who constantly searching for the information I have for them, and they're my audience. So yeah,
that's amazing.
Doesn't bother me what the rest of them are saying.
That's amazing.
The results speak for themselves as well. Like
Well,
at the end of the day, my patients are better than they ever have been, and that's all that matters to me.
well, like, that's the only thing that should matter, and it's having that mindset of patient comes first, money comes second. And again, this is sort of where the incentive structure, I think, out there is kind of backwards.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this is just generally the direction that when the pendulum swings, this is where we go, you know. So that's really, really, that's really amazing. And obviously, being a vet, not to say it all translates, but there would be a lot of it that would translate to the way that you treat your body
100%.
in terms of health and all that sort of stuff. Is there anything there that you think would be worth people knowing?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to my own health, it's definitely been a journey alongside with my patients. I mean, once I started learning about herbal medicine, I realized each and every herb I learned about, I was like, oh my God, I should be taking that. Oh my God, it has so many benefits. So I actually more or less stopped drinking alcohol soon after studying herbal medicine, because I realized, oh gosh, I'm taking all these beautiful herbs. Like, what's the point in damaging my body with alcohol when I'm putting all these wonderful herbs into it? So yeah, but I have a similar approach with my own health. In that I, like I put my patients on fresh whole foods, have plenty of balance, and when there's something wrong, I do the digging to find out what's going on. I had a chronic illness a few years ago with mold illness, and if I had have gone down the conventional system, I'd still be very sick today.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I knew that there were more answers out there than the conventional system would give me. I spent a lot of money, but a lot of time on various naturopaths. Finally found a really good integrative doctor and got to the bottom of how to heal my body using the right herbs and supplements. But yeah, if I had have followed the traditional pathway, I'd still probably be sicker today. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, and that's freaking scary, considering that every advice you always get is just go see what your doctor says and do what they say. Yeah. And then, I mean, again, what I was going to say before is I kind of had that problem when I was in the Navy, where even at sea, I would still have like really bad allergies. And it's like we're in the middle of the freaking ocean. There's no dust or grass or dogs or cats out here. Like, why am I sneezing 20 times in the morning? Long story short,
it would have been a chemical, was it?
Well, so this is my own exploration, right? So I went and saw obviously the defense doctors, ended up getting desensitized. So that's like monthly injections for 4 years of the things that I'm allergic to try and build the immunity to it. 4 years went on, no difference. So allergies the exact same. So that didn't make any difference. I went and saw a couple of to get other opinions from specialists and blah, blah, blah. The GP that, one of the GPs I went and saw was basically, his message was, we'll take antihistamine. And that was kind of like, well, it's kind of, allergies are sort of normal. Get over it, and here you go. It's like, surely there's more to this story than that, but whatever. That's when I went and first saw a naturopath for the first time ever. And from my own experience, the naturopath was more about how can we use the environment, and obviously homeopath as well was just prior to the naturopath, but saw both of them. But, how can we use, with your lifestyle, with, plant medicine, with all these different things that we can that nature creates, like how can we facilitate healthy gut, healthy system, et cetera, et cetera. That's when I then eliminated things like dairy out of the diet and started exploring and eliminating certain things, and allergies got better and worse and blah, blah. So a lot of it came back down to the gut and health of the gut, which is obviously I think it's a lot more, people are a lot more aware of that now, of how important the gut biome and, the gut and brain connection really is.
Absolutely.
Which again, not something we ever taught. We weren't taught that in schools. We weren't taught that. And I'd be very surprised if the GPs that we go and see would even know about that sort of stuff, because it's just not, I've never heard it come from anyone but a naturopath, which is strange.
It's crazy. Yeah. We all know that disease starts in the gut, health starts in the gut.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
And even around COVID, because this is one of the things that I noticed personally was, vaccines were the solution. That was the gateway out of this. No one was ever talking about going for a run, eating lots of fruit, getting lots of nutrients, like trying to bolster up your immune system. No, the answer is vaccine and vaccine only. And this is kind of where I'm like, vaccine's prevention. It's not like, you know what I mean? But it's like, oh, you got COVID, here's the vaccine. It's like, this isn't how it's supposed to work. And even someone who's never been in the medical industry, for me to notice this is kind of like, well, this shit's not working the way it probably should be.
Yeah, 100%.
And that was kind of, a bit of concern. But with your experience with naturopaths, because you've obviously had some experience with them, like how do you find them?
I find them really helpful because they'll basically, when you're integrative medicine practitioner, be it a naturopath, integrative doctor, integrative vet, etc., you look at things in a different way. So rather than just looking at what's a Band-Aid for a symptom, we're looking at why did that symptom come about. Every disease, there's an imbalance somewhere in the body. That's what disease means. Dis-ease, lack of balance.
Yes.
So you're actually looking at where is the imbalance. So it basically involves a lot more digging around to look at the underlying causes, the underlying triggers, and then address those at the root cause. Because that's the only way you're going to have long-term healing is when you actually get to what is the root problem. Yeah, that has started the disease.
And from your experience as well, and obviously no majority within animals, right? But most of what can go wrong is generally lifestyle, environment, and food intake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pretty much outside of that, there's not really a whole lot that can sort of throw you off.
Yeah. But gut health is so crucially important because 80% of our immune system is in the gut. There's a very strong link. It's called the gut-brain axis. So also when we're talking about, so many dogs out there also have anxiety. They've all got poor gut health as well because the gut also produces around 80% of our neurotransmitters. So this is the same for humans as well. Looking after your gut, there just couldn't be anything more important. And it drives me nuts when, vets, doctors go and put people on antibiotics. Like literally I got trained at vet school with they're practically like using lollies. Well, there might be an infection. Let's just put them on some antibiotics. Or there's a bit of infection there, even on the skin. Let's put them on antibiotics. Like you dole them out literally like lollies. And it can take your gut up to 2 years to recover from a single course of antibiotics.
Holy shit.
2 years, and that's humans and animals. So once I learned that, I realized, oh my God, that antibiotics can be doing so much more harm than good. So I started being much more careful. Like I'll still use antibiotics if I really have to, but there's 3, 4, 5 things I'm going to try to deal with the infection first before using antibiotics.
Right.
Because if we're going to use antibiotics, there's a cost to that.
Yeah. I've probably been prescribed antibiotics 5 times in the last 12 months.
Wow. That's
just different things, whether it's, infection here or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I trained jiu-jitsu a lot, obviously, right? I had ringworm. This is probably 8 weeks ago. Went to the doctor. I was thinking he was going to give me a cream, antibiotics
for ringworm.
But
this is about phytosis. It's not even a bacterial infection. It's fungus.
This is why as much as I got it, I didn't actually fulfill the prescription because it's like I know for a fact I can get a cream at the chemist for this over the counter. Like I'm not going to play this game.
Yeah.
But again, it's the question I have is the incentive structure in line with that's how they make the money. That's where the bread and butter.
Also, doctors and vets are very time poor. So sometimes you just honestly, as a baby vet, if I wasn't quite sure what to do sometimes, I probably would have just gone, we better put on antibiotics just in case.
Yeah.
And then I've got a solution. See you later.
Yeah.
When you're time poor, you've got to, as a vet and a doctor who's seeing clients every 10 minutes, you don't have the time to actually ask the questions you need to. Now every single client, I need an hour with them to properly go through everything about their health.
Right.
10 minutes, you're not even scratching the surface.
And that's also why you said before, you've got obviously less clients, but you're more thorough.
Correct.
Yeah, got it. And so when it comes to the gut, because this is, I guess, I know for me personally, this is incredibly important, knowing what I know now. Like, what are the things that you would recommend to, A, keep the gut healthy, but B, help bolster up the immunity?
Yeah. So for both humans and animals, the same thing really goes. So number one is eating fresh whole foods. So the more processed foods you eat, really, it's not great for your microbiome. The good bacteria in there don't like to eat crap.
Yes.
They love a variety of different whole foods. So for your dog, fresh meat and veg.
Right.
Humans, more or less the same. The next thing that's really helpful are fermented foods. So any kind of fermented vegetables, sauerkrauts, those other things are probably a lot better than a probiotic.
Kombucha as well.
Kombucha, exactly. Yep. And kefir, which is a fermented milk product.
Yep.
Pets love it. Put it in your smoothies. Use it instead of yogurt. It's basically got way more of the beneficial bacteria than what any yogurt will have. Yeah. So those things are probably more important than taking a probiotic because we don't even know necessarily if a probiotic reaches the gut and actually then grows in the gut. So using wild fermented foods is probably a lot more efficient way of doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And then stress is another very important one. So again, talking about the gut-brain axis, when you're stressed, the blood supply slows right down to your gut, and your gut is going to flourish if you're in a stress state. So my patients, like I mentioned, so many dogs these days that have anxiety. They mostly get it from their humans. There's a very close connection between what's happening emotionally for the animal and what's happening from the human. The dogs and the cats even to some extent think it's their job to take that stress away.
Wow.
So they literally take it into their own bodies. So dealing with your stress is also very good for your animal stress, and minimizing whatever's stressing your pet out is really important for them too.
That's amazing. It's important. Like, again, we're not taught this stuff. This is not something that people would generally talk about, which is this is very beneficial. Gosh. which is great. And so then moving into the investment world, because obviously getting into property is almost the opposite.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like you're not taking care of your body, you're trying to take care of your back pocket now. So it's a whole different way of sort of living and being. And in that realm as well, I've seen people, for the sake of money, they then sacrifice their health. You know what I mean? When it comes to stress and all the rest of it. So getting into property, you mentioned before that you could kind of see that property could be a way out or a way to kind of get the future that you want.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas, something like the vet industry or the track you're on before probably wasn't going to be. All right. Now, in that line, over the last sort of 10 years, you've met with a lot of clients in both veterinary and in the investment world. In the investment world and in property, obviously, this is our bread and butter. So this is something that we talk about every day. Run the numbers every day. Like, it's just so confident that property is absolutely the best vehicle for the average person to become wealthy. Yeah. And obviously, you kind of saw that at the beginning and then started your journey. Was there any sort of transferable skills you went from, when you're in the vet world and then into property? Was there anything that you kind of saw like similarities between them?
I don't know about similarities, no. I think the crossover really just came because I was frustrated financially. I needed a pathway forward to get myself out of I was in a shit financial spot, in all honesty. I'd been a vet for 10 years. I had 20 grand in credit card debt and nothing else to my name. And I didn't even see a pathway on my wage of getting rid of even that credit card debt. Once I realized how simple property was, it was just such a huge relief. I remember just thinking, wow, I really am going to get where I want to get to in, the next 15, 20 years. And then I've still got 20 years of my career to work with wildlife. So having that, it's a real backup plan, I suppose. I mean, the great thing about property is that once you get started, you just have to sit back and wait. Like, it's so simple. I've only bought 2 properties, but then once I knew that they were off and racing, I just had to sit back and watch them grow. I actually circled back to the vet industry and then realized, okay, cool, I don't have to focus so much on earning money. I could do what I'm passionate about and then just let my properties grow. And, now 8 years later, I've made more than $500,000 in growth just from the first 2. So yeah, it's a great feeling knowing that, my income from my career is not everything.
That's interesting. So that's actually really freaking cool in the sense that you've jumped out of what you're doing with vets, started investing in property. You've kind of taken care of your future in a way. Now you've jumped back into vets with a whole different context and you can actually do what you actually want to do.
Yeah.
That's freaking cool. Yeah. That's really freaking cool. Far out. So for everyone listening to this, there's options out there.
Yeah.
People, there's options. And this is the beauty of it. And this is this is what I love. Because it's like you've taken responsibility of your money. You've gone and actively invested. That's now reaping rewards. And you can actually now focus on what you love. Like, that's the whole point of doing this shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And it doesn't have to be linear. Like, when I first got into the property industry, I thought I'm going to be doing this until I retire. But then after a few years, I changed my mind. I was like, yeah, no, what? I miss out working with animals. You can choose. You can change your mind.
Yeah.
I'm someone that loves freedom, and the thought of doing the same thing for X amount of time freaks me out. So once I realized through some coaching that I can change my mind whenever I like and change trajectory and do something completely different, it feels really good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And now, obviously, today you're doing both,
Yeah, I'm doing both.
which works
Yeah.
well, you
Yeah.
know.
Perfect.
And it's one of those where I think you said it before, like just the fact that you're helping people is the big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is the realization that I had when I was in the Navy, where the only thing that truly matters is the difference we can make.
Yeah.
Everything else is kind of just noise. It's just distractions, you know.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, that's the true thing that really does satisfy and fill us to our core. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why you got into vets in the beginning, because it's like that's the difference you want to make to animals.
Yeah.
You know, whether you felt like you were making that difference or not. The point is like now that your money's getting taken care of, it's like you really can make the decisions based on what you want and where you want to go versus having to do it for the money.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's beautiful. And that's like that's what most people want.
Yeah.
And that's what most people kind of struggle with.
Yeah. And it's also great when I work with clients when we talk about, you know, what's financial freedom for them? What would you be doing when money's not a problem? You know, if you could be doing anything. And so many people, maybe I find them, but so many people tell me, I want to be helping animals in some way.
Hell yeah.
Or wildlife or the environment, you know, taking care of national parks. And that's something I'm so passionate about. So when I can help a person on their journey to helping animals and helping the environment, like, it's next level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what sort of causes are you interested in? Like, what have you worked doing so far, and what do you want to be doing with the wildlife conservation?
So far, I actually fell in love with the orangutan quite a few years ago. So I went to Borneo on 4 different occasions to work in the middle of the rainforest with the beautiful orangutan babies. So that was super rewarding. But I'm also very passionate about Australian wildlife. And Africa. Africa's just took my heart it was the first place I really traveled to when I was a kid. We went on a family holiday and I remember telling Dad, all I want to do is be a game park ranger at Kruger Park. That's all I want to do. I'm done. And he said, well, if you want to work with animals, you've got to have a vet degree. I was like, all right. So this is kind of why I became a vet, really, was because I just thought, oh my God, working in a wildlife park in Africa, I just couldn't think of anything better to do with my life. So that's still very much a goal for me.
Hell yeah.
In another 10, 15 years, you know, once my properties are, you know, giving that passive income that I need, I'll be spending a few months of the year in Africa. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's definitely my plan.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, again, it's that's your way of contributing.
Yeah.
That's your way to make a difference. That's beautiful. I mean, obviously, Africa's got its own problems with poaching and all the rest of the trophy hunting and all the bad stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
I went there when I was in the Navy in 2013, I want to say. Kenya, Somalia. Yeah, wild place. Very different to Australia. And I would highly encourage everyone to go there because that's going somewhere like Africa is how you really open your eyes to the world.
Yeah.
You know, we did a little safari and some cool stuff. But again, just the like we kind of live in fairyland over here.
We really do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think spending time in a third world country every couple of years is so good to really appreciate how easy we have it.
Yeah.
I remember being in the jungle in Borneo for a few weeks and no running water at all. And I remember the first time I had a flushing toilet after all these weeks. I was like, wow, how cool is this?
Yeah, just the little things, hey?
The little things.
We just take for granted. But, you know, I mean, there's people I know who've never travelled.
Yeah.
And there's just no concept of just how the rest of the world works. And it's just, I can understand why they take it for granted.
Yeah.
You know, and it's certainly easy to do. But I'm glad you're out there fighting that good fight. That's awesome. That's really, really cool. And so working with clients in the investment side, because this is where I think, you know, especially this show, getting some kind of tangible help, right? What are some of the things that you see that you know clients do that really doesn't serve them?
The main thing I notice is people finding excuses not to make a decision and move forward.
Right.
You know, it's there's always something in the way. There's always something you're working on or you're busy with or, you know, these hurdles. But at the end of the day, the sooner that you make a decision, whether it's yay or nay, just make a decision and get on with doing something. Because the longer you procrastinate about it, the longer it's going to take you to retire. It's as simple as that. I mean, there's family members, for example, of mine that when I first started in the property industry 8-9 years ago, I was like, oh, guys, you've got enough equity to buy like 3 properties. You really should do something. But there was always this excuse and that excuse, oh, the market's doing this or it's doing that, or I'm just not. Like literally 8 years ago, they could have bought 3 properties. And they've just sat on the fence the whole time. Oh, so how are your properties going, Lou? Yeah, really well.
Yeah.
Really, really well. And still, even now, after they've seen my properties do really well for 8 years, and they've seen they're still in that same situation where they're no closer to their retirement goals. And it just frustrates the hell out of me because, if they had have followed what I was doing, they literally would be retired by now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard too, because, I mean, you're a really good example of someone who, parked what you were doing, made the investment a priority. Now you've come back to it and you're letting it do it behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And this is to your point about how good property is. It's like, if you just plant the seed and then just forget about it and then go back to doing what you're doing, just that one decision is the difference between you being a millionaire and not in 10 years.
Yeah.
It's literally that simple.
Yeah.
That simple. And you're right, like, that's a struggle. And I tend to think a part of it is some element of them kind of not feeling like they're good enough or worthy enough or they deserve it. I mean, I've had this conversation with a lot of people who really, when it comes down to it, they're avoiding trying because they don't want to fail, and they think they're going to fail because they think they're not good enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
And it's like, if all you did is just make a different decision, your life is in a whole different direction.
Yeah.
And chances are a much better one. And it's just one decision. And you're a really good example of that. In the sense that you haven't had to really sacrifice. Like, do you feel like you had to sacrifice animals or like you sacrifice your life to invest in property?
Not at all.
Not, there you go. And in fact, there's an argument that you're actually in an even better spot now with what you're doing with your career.
I'm a much better spot. I mean, the equity that's my first 2 properties have generated, I'm still on the fence about if I do another same investment or go buy some land. But, at the end of the day, the equity is going to buy me a beautiful chunk of land very soon. And that'll be able to launch the next stage of my business, which is having a whole animal retreat, growing all the herbs, letting animals come and self-medicate and showing people, literally herbal medicine in action on my property.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So the property journey is absolutely facilitating me helping animals. And it's also going to be the way that I fully retire in another 10 years. So, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I wish everyone did this shit. Like, I can't stress this enough. The amount of conversations I've had. And it's like, this is like what you're doing is almost like, this is why. You know what I mean? Like, this is exactly why. Like, we're not stuck.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard. And I know when you got debt and fucking car loans and credit cards and all this shit behind you and you feel like you're stuck and there's no options, there are always options. And it's like, this is the sort of shit that, like, can tangibly help people see that there's other options out there.
Yeah.
And there certainly is. Yeah. And again, not to say that property is the solution for everyone. It's certainly not. Again, big believer, for the average punter, property is awesome because of leverage. The safety factor, the fact you can continue keep investing in there's just so many benefits to it. But I love it. I mean, I've got another client, and this is a client who's in the mine specifically. He wants to open up his own mining company and, like, get by a drill rig and all the rest of it. And it's like a drill rig, was having a look with him. Drill rig's about 1.8 mil if you want to buy one.
Mm-hmm.
Good chance of getting a bank loan for that, first of all. That client's now a millionaire. So him being able to buy his own drill rig in the next 5 years is actually realistic now.
Wow. Amazing.
And then he can start getting his own drillers and offsiders and blah, 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 and start exploration. But the point is like, it's his property portfolio that has facilitated him buying his own drill rig that's going to make him a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
If he hadn't invested in property and this was just some pipe dream 10 years ago that he took no action on, he'd still be a driller or driller's offsider. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, but it's just, it freaking works. And this is the best part about it. Because I know for a lot of people, it sounds like, oh, this airy-fairy, yeah, sure, it's, 50% go bankrupt. No. Most people don't know what they're doing. If you just put a plan in place and action it, like, you can get to your spot and you can actually do the shit you want to be doing.
Yeah.
It's freaking amazing, Lou.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other big thing that I find people struggle with is sitting on the fence about what's worrying them. they've heard this bad story, this could go wrong, that could go wrong. It's really simple. You just get all of those things out and it's all worked into your plan. Yes, you might not have tenants. Yes, interest rates might go up. Yes, the property market might go down for a little bit. It's the same thing that happens over and over again. There's a plan in place for all of those things.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be scared about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you just have to plan for it. All the worst case scenarios you can think of, great. Write them all down.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure that you've got a plan to deal with it.
100%.
It's really simple. Yeah.
Well,
and then you don't have to be stressing at all.
Yeah. And that's if there's any secret to it, that's the secret. It's mitigating risk consistently over time.
Yeah.
And I do say this to people often. Successful investing is not about making money. It's about mitigating risk.
Yeah.
Because the market's going to make you money, not you. And sure, you can go do a development or renovation and try and create your own equity in some way, shape or form. But if you just let the market forces do what it does and you just mitigate risk, like, not that I can guarantee it, but I can almost guarantee you'll be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to reduce it and make it sound just too simple, but it's fucking simple.
It's simple.
It's really not that difficult.
Yeah.
And again, you are certainly a testament to the fact that it works. And now just when did you get into property originally?
Actually, I bought my first property when I first graduated vet school, went up to Exmouth and
Cool.
bought a little house up there with my boyfriend at the time.
Yep.
Used the first homeowners grant. My dad said, just do it on your own, not with that idiot boyfriend. Should have listened to Dad because
Damn it, Daddy's right.
Dad was right. Did it with the idiot boyfriend. I paid all our repayments for like the next 5 years.
Oh, fuck.
And then when we broke up, he wanted to sell the house and keep half. I was like, no, I've paid all the repayments and I don't want to sell it now because Exmouth's booming right now. Like, we're making money. But, when relationships break down, you kind of just want the simple out. So I agreed to sell it. He took half. What an idiot for just giving half. He didn't deserve any of it. Anyway, so that was my first property mistake, was selling and not having an agreement with my partner.
Yeah.
But, in your 20s, you do silly things.
Of course.
So that was my first property experience. And then I kind of went back to scratch after that. I made a bit of money from it. But when you sell it, it's then cash. I should have reinvested, but I was going back into... I actually started a business, a vet clinic with my dad that didn't go well. I lost the money I gained from that property in business. So that was another mistake, not reinvesting it. I started from scratch again and bought my next property with the last property company I was with.
Yeah.
So built that place in Perth. Not long after, used the equity to build the next one in Queensland.
Yeah.
And I'm just so grateful for doing that because they've really killed it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, look, both Perth and Brisbane have performed really well. Obviously, this is part of the cycle where they're supposed to boom, so that's part of the game. But it's good too because the fact that you've had these lessons, it's something A, you're not going to do again.
Yeah.
And B, you like the best way. The best way to avoid mistakes is to go through it.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, that's the second best way. The best way is to know someone who went through it so you don't make the same mistakes. It's amazing. And again, that's something that you can transfer straight to clients too. And I mean, the amount of clients that I've seen start businesses or try to start businesses, and obviously chances are it's not going to succeed. That's part of the stats. The property's obviously way simpler. I mean, with business, I often say, because even a few people here want to start their own and highly encourage it. The question that I have, are you willing to work 80 hours a week for the next 5 years and make no money? If not, probably not going to be business.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be a good solution.
Yeah.
But property is.
Yeah.
And that's why I say for the average person, property is by far the best asset.
Yeah.
By far.
Absolutely.
And even with what you've made over the last say 10 years of just letting those buying those two houses, one in Perth, one in Brisbane, just letting them do their thing. Like the energy exchange required to make that money is nil.
It's literally been nothing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Whereas literally the last 5 years, I've worked so hard on my holistic vet business, helped a lot of animals. Have I made any money? Probably not.
Yeah. It's part of the thing. I mean, look, I hear. I get it, and it's
and I couldn't be busier. Like, I'm booked out, but I'm making money. Not really.
And that's the other thing too, because unless you're going to want to scale, and then you start delegating, trusting people below you to be able to do the job just as well as you are, if not better, and that's where the business risk kind of comes into it.
Yeah.
Training, development, all the rest of it comes with it. Whereas, those two properties are just, I mean, even the last 2 years, Perth and Brisbane have received, I know Perth in the last 12 months is about 20%. Brisbane, I think, is about 8 or 9%, last time I checked. But, I mean, you look at a combined, almost 30% growth in a 12-month period.
Yeah.
On an asset worth, what, 600, 650?
Oh, they're both worth close to 800 now.
There you go.
Bought them around, the Queensland one I bought for 400. It's now worth over 800.
There you go.
Yeah.
So double in 10 years, Now, again.
Double in 8 years, so yeah.
There you go. So and not to say it's going to do it every 10 years. Generally speaking, as the 8% weighted average, averages out, it's generally what it does. But the fact that, there is zero, and this is the best part for me, it's like the zero energy exchange.
Yeah.
Ironically, this afternoon after this show, I'm going down to continue renovating in one of the clients' houses.
Interesting.
Now, as much as renovations on the block look enjoyable, this thing is a fucking nightmare.
Couldn't think of anything worse.
It is the worst. But again, the point is like, yes, the client's going to make lots of money. Once we're done, we rent the rooms out, sort of room by room. So it's going to be one of the multi-occ situations. The amount of energy required to do that is phenomenal as compared to what you've done. So in other words, you've doubled your money in the space of 8 years doing nothing. You just put tenants into it, forget about it. They take care of everything. Versus what I'm doing with this particular client, sure, we're going to do it in a quicker time frame. So it's going to be within 12 months from, starting to getting it tenanted. The amount of energy required is ridiculous. And, if we were to put that on the balance sheet, in terms of, my time, the team's time, the amount of people who have to get involved in, I mean, tomorrow we're cutting the driveway open.
Wow.
And having to redo all the sewer. It's absolute nightmare, to put it very bluntly and very quickly. But the point is like doing it this simple way is actually better long term. And this is the part where people, a lot of them don't want to wait. And this is one of the problems we also see, right? It's people, they want to make money quick. They want that real quick result. They want to, I want to buy and renovate in 6 weeks and then make all this money in 6 weeks and do it again and blah, blah. And then they're just continuous on that wheel. Whereas like what you've done is you've planted the seed, you've let the trees grow. They're now reaping the fruit. And it's like, you can just focus on the shit you love doing.
And 8 years goes past very quickly.
Oh, it's quicker. Like that. Oh, yeah, as far as it's going. Yeah, and that's just it's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, even now, I did my review for my own portfolio the other day. Obviously, we've just turned to the new year. And even like watching the mortgages and readjusting the mortgages and how they've dropped, it's like, how the hell have I only got like 18 years left on this freaking mortgage? But again, it blinks.
Yeah.
You blink and it's like you're already almost halfway through. The values versus the debt, and it's just this shit freaking works. Like it's just so simple. But this is part of what we do. This is part of the journey, part of the fun. Now with the investment clients, because obviously seeing sort of where they're stuck and the problems that they've got, what would be a couple of things that you would say to them? And this is just very general, very broad, not anyone in particular. But like, what are a couple of tangible things that you can say? Hey, this is what I'd recommend you doing that will improve their financial situation.
So first of all, if you haven't already figured out how much you can possibly borrow safely, do that first. Like, it's so important that while you're in a position to be borrowing as much as you can, that you do that. At the same time, of course, you don't want to overextend yourself, so you want to have plenty of buffers in place. But I wish I had have reassessed my situation a couple of years ago, because I hadn't even realised that my properties had gone up as much as I had, because I kind of just literally forgot about them. 2 years ago, I probably could have actually bought another one, because I hadn't realised that I could borrow more money at that point. because I was just focused on being a vet, literally forgot
Yes.
about them. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, keep a track on how much can you borrow. Is all of your money being put to work as effectively as it can? Because if it's not, then you're literally wasting time before you can retire. Like the sooner it's effectively earning your money, the better. And then the next one probably is just regarding, any concerns you've got, anything that's worrying you, have that question, that concern answered by more than one person potentially, but just get off the fence, make a decision, and get on with it.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I've learned over the years. Everyone's got their own way of doing things. Previous company we used to work for does things one way. There's some companies out there, all they do is just renovations. That's their strategy, and it works. Like renovations work. However, people get caught up in but this way's better than that way, and they kind of chop and change and move. Whereas I feel like that all of these pathways can work. Find one and just tunnel vision. And what you'll end up finding, doesn't matter what pathway you choose, you're going to get to the end result. And it's going to get done way faster than what you actually think, if you just focus on that one thing. And again, I've seen people, kind of jump around and bounce between here and put a little bit of stuff here, a little bit of stuff there. And it's like, because their resources are so spread thin, they're doing a lot, but they're actually not getting anywhere with any of them. You know what I mean? Whereas if you find one, put 100% into it, you'll generally find you get a hell of a lot further.
Yeah.
So that's really good advice. And then with the clients as well, because obviously you've been working with us for about just over 12 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, just over 12 months. And obviously over the last sort of 12 months, you've been working on the East Coast with some of our East Coast clients, and then sort of the vet stuff sort of here and back and forth. Over the next 12 months, where do you see the market going from what you can see?
Well, I rely on you for that advice, Corey.
Of course.
But I do believe that it makes sense to me that the Perth market still has a lot more growth to come.
Yeah.
So I'll probably do, my next purchase will be in Perth.
Cool.
Further to that, I'm tempted to do another one otherwise in Queensland again. After living in Queensland for a few years, I know how many amazing places there are.
Yeah.
Queensland's incredible. And I'll probably continue living half my life in WA and half over there. I see the benefits there. But who knows? I don't know where I'll invest in a year's time, because who knows what the market's doing. But I'll be asking you.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I ask is being on the ground is one thing.
Yeah.
Having research is one thing. Being on the ground is something else. Obviously Sydney, I can't see them continuously outperforming the national market, because it just by default it means they're going to be double, triple the price of wherever else, and it just mechanically I just can't see how that's going to happen. Melbourne is coming backwards pretty bloody quick right now, and that's obviously thanks to the state government in Victoria getting in their own way.
Yes.
to put
That's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, Brisbane's interesting. I've got obviously a few properties over there. I love Brisbane in the sense that, Queensland as a whole, it's very similar to WA. The climate, tropical, warm, similar in a lot of ways. But then, in terms of, because you were in Byron for a little bit as well, weren't you, sort of bouncing between?
Yeah, so the Byron Gold Coast hinterland, so it's kind of an hour, not even, between Byron Bay and Gold Coast. So there's this amazing mountain range that runs just inland between the two. So that's my special area.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and most of my special long-term clients are those hinterland properties.
Yeah. And from what I can see is the markets, especially around, they're just stupid, phenomenal prices. Huge amount of growth over the last 10 years. But again, it's one of those ones where you got to have a buy-in at 2.6 mil, and most people can't afford 2.6 mil. If they could probably go and buy 4 in Perth, for the same sort of price. But again, because you've got obviously clients over there on that side of things, it's a little different, because obviously, they have their own properties, they'd have boots on the ground. And, from what they're feeling and experiencing is probably the opposite of what we're feeling and experiencing over here. In fact, got some clients, and it's quite funny because it's all based on sentiment, right? So if people are confident, they want to spend more money. Now, the hard part is Perth really hasn't got that sentiment yet, right, where we're going to have it the winner's curse. And what that really means is when the market is really, really hot and really, really top of the market, that's when everyone thinks it's a good idea to invest. And you've totally missed the boat. But it's interesting in the sense that, so some clients in Victoria right now, like for them, it's just doom and gloom. Like they have zero optimism of the property market nationally, zero, because they're stuck in Melbourne where the prices are declining. And so it makes it really hard to try and have those conversations with them because they're stuck in Melbourne. They've got the lens of Melbourne. They can't see the opportunities in other cities. It makes it hard to kind of bridge that gap in some cases. And obviously the fact that you're on the East Coast all the time makes it easy because you actually meet with them and talk to them and show them, you know what I mean, versus being on a Zoom call, which is its own fun.
It's different.
It is, but look, it's also a sign of the times. You know, I mean, we're heading towards a world where the virtual world is becoming its own world.
It really is.
And that's kind of scary. It's kind of cool, kind of scary, and creates its own challenges. I mean, look, all we can do is just try and provide the best advice and the best support we possibly can in the fact that the world is changing. There was side topic, but there's an app that I've seen and it keeps popping up. There's like an ad keeps popping up, but it's basically an app where you're buying virtual land and making money from it.
Interesting.
Don't even ask. Don't even. The point is like, that's a good way to get scammed. But the further we kind of press into this virtual world, like the more, and it's like Bitcoin, right? It's like the more people that buy into it, the more those virtual assets are actually worth, supply and demand, which is interesting. But yeah, that's a whole other podcast we can do. This is just how far do we go?
Yeah.
But no, look, I'm stoked for you because this is, you know, just from you know where you're at today versus where you were, you know, 5-6 years ago. I can tell that you're different in a great way. Not that there's anything wrong with you before, but it kind of, like, from what I can see from your socials, from what I can feel from like what you're putting out there, it's like you've kind of found your calling, and it's you're walking the talk. Sorry, walking the walk. Which there's not many people out there who are, and I think that's it's a very cool thing to be able to see this from, you know, a fly on the wall perspective, where it's like you weren't satisfied. You've taken responsibility. You've taken action. You've put, you know, your money to work. Now you can focus on the cool shit you love doing that actually makes a difference to you. Like that's beautiful, and we need more of this shit because this is really where the world sucks because there's not enough of that happening, you know, and that's where I think a lot of our problems are coming from. So I'm stoked to hear.
Thank you.
And I'm loving it. Anything else you think be worth chatting about?
Just to let my vet clients know that I do this role.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point. Yeah, 100%.
Because I haven't actually really managed to let my my beautiful vet clients know that I can help them in their property investment journey as well.
Hell yeah. Well, yeah. The best place to be as someone who wants help is having someone who's walking the walk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the fact that you are in both realms, you know, obviously you're highly trusted in you know, with your clients, which is obviously one thing. And that's not just your vet clients, it's also our clients as well that you're helping. You know, that's kind of one thing, but the fact that you can help out. And the other thing too, I understand obviously you're a vet, right? But even when we talk about things like gut health, like this is the sort of shit people can implement today for themselves. Like not just, you know, put down the Oreos, pick up a banana. Like it's not that freaking hard. But, you know, being able to provide that kind of help, you know, health-wise and wealth-wise. Again, there's no one out there who's sort of doing both. But I think, you know, for your vet clients, especially the ones who've got you on social media, the fact that you're actually walking the path like that, that's the most important thing because you're actually doing it. You're not just, you're not selling Amway here. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like this isn't just some multi-level marketing thing that, yeah, it's no. You're actually making a shitload of money doing, you know, investing the right way and helping clients in both realms, which is awesome. So no, you should be really proud, Lou.
Thank you.
like I said, I'm loving having you here and
I love
working
being
with
here.
you again. Yeah, no, it's awesome. But yeah, what we'll do is we will share this across obviously the platforms, and we'll give you the link as well, so you can share it with your followers too, and all your clients. Because if there's anything we can do to help, we'll help.
Absolutely.
Hell yeah! But I appreciate you, Dr. Lou.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Easy.